Almost every backyard observer does at least one thing every day that quietly hurts the squirrels in their yard. That is the hard part. The things that do the most damage are the ones that feel completely harmless. In some cases, they even feel like acts of love. And if you keep doing them, which almost every backyard observer does, you may be slowly damaging the trust, the health, and the sense of safety of the specific squirrels you have spent months trying to care for. Here are 6 everyday things that hurt the squirrels in your yard far more than you think. Start with the one almost everyone gets completely wrong. Have you ever stepped outside, seen a squirrel doing something you did not like, knocking over the feeder, tearing at the bird box, running across your car, and shouted at them? Be honest, almost every backyard observer has done it. It feels like the right thing in the moment. It feels like communication. But here's what the squirrel actually registers. Bill Bateman, whose work on urban wildlife habituation is widely cited in the field, has shown that the variable that matters most in a wild animal's response to a specific human is not the presence of the human, it is the predictability of that human. A backyard observer who has spent months building a stable, predictable pattern of behavior, soft voice, slow movement, consistent food, has been depositing trust in the squirrel's nervous system every day. That trust has a currency in the squirrel's brain. It is real. It is measurable. A single moment of shouting, banging, or sudden loud noise can drain a substantial portion of that trust in one deposit. The squirrel does not think, "I did something wrong." The squirrel thinks, "The safe human is not safe today." That reclassification does not reset by the next morning. It takes days of consistent, quiet behavior to rebuild what one moment of shouting undid. And if that feels harsh to hear, wait until we get to the 6th thing at the end of this video. Because there is one thing almost every backyard observer does, not out of anger, but out of practical necessity. That might be doing more damage to the squirrels in their yard than anything else on this list. We will get to that one at the end. When was the last time the squirrels in your yard actually had to work for their food? Not walk up to a feeder and take a seed. Actually search, actually forage, actually solve a small problem to reach the food. Most backyard squirrels in yards with feeders go days, sometimes weeks, without a single real foraging experience. Lucia Jacobs at the University of California, Berkeley, whose laboratory has produced most of what is known about tree squirrel cognition, has shown that the dominant activity in the mental life of a healthy squirrel is not eating. It is foraging. The specific work of finding, evaluating, selecting, carrying, and caching food is what the squirrel's brain was built to do across 30 million years of evolution. When a squirrel gets its entire food supply from a feeder in a bowl, it skips that entire sequence. The result is a squirrel that is technically well-fed but cognitively understimulated. Documented urban wildlife research consistently shows that feeder-dependent populations show reduced foraging complexity, lower spatial memory challenges, and less of the natural mental engagement that makes a squirrel act like a squirrel. The fix is small. Take the same amount of seed you would have poured into the feeder and scatter it in 5 or 6 different spots: under leaves, in the crook of a low branch, between fence rails, in the grass at the far edge of the yard. 5 minutes of work for you. What it gives the squirrels in your yard is the entire mental sequence their species has been running for millions of years, and the small daily joy of being an animal that has actually earned its food. If the primary food you have been giving the squirrels in your yard is sunflower seeds and only sunflower seeds, you may be quietly hurting them in a way that will not show up for months. Sunflower seeds are calorically dense. Squirrels love them, and in moderation, they are fine. But a diet made up primarily of sunflower seeds has a specific chemical problem that most backyard observers never learn about. Sunflower seeds have a very poor calcium to phosphorus ratio. They are high in phosphorus and low in calcium. When a mammal eats a diet with too much phosphorus relative to calcium for long enough, the body starts pulling calcium out of its own bones to maintain the required chemical balance in the blood. Over time, the bones weaken. The condition is called metabolic bone disease. In wildlife rehabilitation centers across the United States, metabolic bone disease is one of the most common preventable conditions seen in squirrels, from yards where the human has been feeding them sunflower seed monocultures for months or years. Kits born to mothers on a sunflower-only diet are especially vulnerable. Their bones do not form properly. In severe cases, they cannot climb. The fix is straightforward. Mix it up. Rotate in whole almonds, walnut halves in the shell, hazelnuts, unsalted pumpkin seeds, small pieces of apple or sweet potato, and calcium-rich supplements like a small block of cuttlebone the squirrels can gnaw on. The variety keeps their chemistry stable, and the squirrels who have grown up on a balanced diet more than any other squirrels in the neighborhood are the ones you will see running along the fence at full speed year after year. Have you ever, in a moment of tenderness with a squirrel that has finally let you get close, reached out to touch it? Be honest. Most long-term backyard observers at some point have tried. Here is what actually happens when a human hand touches a wild squirrel that has trusted you enough to come close. Robert McCleary at the University of Florida, whose laboratory has done some of the best research in the world on how urban and suburban squirrels read individual humans, has documented that the classification a squirrel gives to a trusted human is very specific. You are a stable, predictable, non-touching feature of the yard. The moment your hand makes contact with the squirrel's body, that classification breaks. The nervous system that has spent months moving you into the safe layer moves you back out again in 1 second. But it is worse than that. A wild squirrel that has been touched by a human hand does not just lose trust in you, it generalizes. Its brain has now been given evidence that human hands make contact. The next human who reaches for it, whether that is a stranger, a neighbor's child, or a well-meaning gardener, will get a moment less of the flee response that has kept the squirrel species alive for tens of millions of years. The most caring thing you can do with a squirrel that has come close enough to touch is not touch it. Let it eat from the deck rail 6 inches from your hand. Let it rest in your presence. Do not close the last 6 inches. That restraint is the deepest respect a wild animal can be given. Where is the feeder in your yard right now? If it is in the middle of the lawn, on top of an open post, or in a spot with no cover within a few feet in any direction, you may be putting the squirrels in your yard in more danger than you realize. Squirrels are prey. Almost every predator that hunts them, hawks, owls, cats, foxes, raccoons, uses either aerial ambush or ground stalking to catch them. The single most important variable in a squirrel's decision to feed at a specific location is not the quality of the food, it is the distance to the nearest cover. Field research on squirrel foraging behavior consistently shows that a feeder placed more than 8 to 10 feet from the nearest tree trunk, dense shrub, or vertical escape route is a feeder that some squirrels will avoid entirely and that all squirrels will use with elevated vigilance. The stress hormones of a squirrel eating in an exposed feeder location are measurably higher than the stress hormones of a squirrel eating within lunging distance of an oak trunk. The fix is simple. Move the feeder, or better, put out food in multiple spots, some at the feeder, some at the base of trees, some tucked into the crook of a low branch, some against the fence line. Squirrels will use every one of them, and the one that feels safest, the one closest to cover, will become the location the trusting ones use most. That is not laziness. That is a squirrel choosing to eat while giving its nervous system the smallest possible reason to be afraid. Which brings us to the 6th thing, the one from the beginning of this video, the one almost no backyard observer thinks of as a form of harm at all. The day you go on vacation. Every act of care you have offered the squirrels in your yard has been building a specific pattern in their nervous systems. The morning arrival, the soft voice, the seed at the same time, the predictable rhythm of a specific human who shows up when they are supposed to and behaves the way they are supposed to behave. That pattern is the foundation of everything the squirrels have decided about you. And then you leave for a week, for 2 weeks, for a month. From your perspective, it is a vacation. From the squirrel's perspective, it is the sudden and unexplained disappearance of the most important stable presence in their yard. Bill Bateman's work on urban wildlife habituation has shown that consistency is not just a nice-to-have for wild animals living near humans. It is a load-bearing part of the trust structure itself. When a predictable human suddenly stops appearing, the animals that had built their day around that human do not conclude that the human is gone forever. They check, they return, they wait, they return again, for a long time. During that period, they may lose weight from reduced supplemental food. They may take more risks foraging elsewhere. Some of them may leave the yard entirely and not come back when you return. The specific squirrel you spent a year building trust with may be a different animal by the time you unpack. You cannot always avoid leaving. But you can prepare the yard for your absence, leave extra food, ask a neighbor to scatter seed once every few days, keep the pattern going until you return. The squirrels in your yard, more than you have ever fully realized, are always waiting for you.